This is the December 27th, 23 meeting of the Upton Conservation Commission. We have a quorum. So let's start out with the first agenda item, 2 Ames Lane enforcement order. Mary.
Yeah, and I'm hoping Mr. Barry will show up. He sounded like he was going to be here. I sent him a reminder, I think yesterday. But I did do a site visit, and let's see if we can pull up some of those pictures. And I'll pull up the plan first.
Exactly is rural math, and what does it say about women?
All right, so here is the screen, and let me see if I can zoom in. You guys can see what we're looking at. And you may remember this one. All right, so this was, here's the house. Here's a garage. This was a new septic. Here's the septic. And here's the wetland right there. And the 30-foot line on these plans, it looks like it goes right up to the driveway, really close. And when they did the construction for the septic system, this is why I was asked, you think that they would have accessed from this side, but they accessed from this side as well as from this side. So they were accessing on both sides and, going into that 30-foot. But when you're actually on site, it doesn't look like this line is as close to the driveway as it looks on the plan. So that's something that he is going to get the engineers out there to hopefully kind of verify this, because it looks like it's literally a foot away or something. So and I think you'll see from aerials. So there's a lot of work in this zone here. It's not in the wetland. I met Mr. Barry out there. He, seemed very accommodating. Oh yeah, I want to do what's right. I'm going to call the engineer. We're going to get this taken care of. I'm a little surprised he's not here, but let me see if we can get the pictures. And I think these are Dave's, I think, pictures. Yeah, and here you can see, now I couldn't find all the wetland flags. Like this one, I don't think is there anymore. So here's the work, right. And this is the septic. They did change the location of the tank and submitted a revised plan, which was out of the 100-foot buffer, which is why we didn't see it. The septic is close. The wetland it's not too much further away. And here's this. And then so that's 2022. And these are pictures that I took with Mr. Barry. When we measured 30 feet from the blue flag, it was kind of this line, which I think looks different than, because here's the edge of the driveway. The lines seem to be going like that, but maybe some of the flags have disappeared or something. That's why we need the engineers. Here's kind of the backyard. And this is the top of the septic mound. Again, kind of looking at the edge. And the house. And again, the edge. So that's all the pictures. So he wrote a couple emails to the engineering. I kind of, the way we left it was, well, it's winter now, probably don't do anything until the spring. He has the equipment to clean it up. And I think it seems like we may need to get the engineers out there first, though, to kind of figure out, where the missing wetland flags are, where exactly that 30-foot away is, so he knows how far to clean back. When we originally measured off the flags that we could see, it seemed like he hadn't gone that far into it, but when you look at the plans, it looks very different. So I think, so there is no enforcement order now. There was never one issued, apparently, or that's, he said he never got one. So that's kind of the story there. Oh, Tim, you're here.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. Do you want to add to anything to what I said? Did you see all that?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Great.
Sure. No, I think what you said is, exactly what's there. I was away, but Allen Engineering did come out and stake it. So you're more than welcome to come out and see it. It is different from what you and I painted. It obviously represents what's on that plan.
Okay.
For the most part, it's the same, except where you get towards the barn there. There's that one section that almost like a triangle goes up.
Mm-hmm.
Closer to the barn. My stuff that I have there still isn't on that. It's still just the gravel, that's in that area. So I agree, we'll clean it all up and whatever we need to do. And I actually just started taking stuff away from that side anyways, because the amount of space that encroaches on it will be useless anyway. So, and I guess, yeah, like you and I spoke, I never saw any of that stuff. We closed on it. The septic was done. The leach field was done. I traveled. I was in and out. But then since that time, so the grade where the leach field is that you were looking at, in the whole property as a whole, the whole, basically, the backyard and everything, all the water just sheds to the house and to the barn. And I mean, I still have water coming in the basement, and started putting in some drainage and so forth to correct that. The way the leach field was done, and you could see, I think I pointed to you, Mary, when we were out there, where somebody had replaced some of the rotted section before, but now with that leach field, the water just pours. It was pouring into the barn. So what I did, and again, not knowing where the buffer zone was, I basically cleaned up the back of the barn to redirect some of the water, and then just made some gravel over there because it was just saturated. And I mean, and I'm not talking about the wetlands. I'm talking about the barn, the house, water. It was water. And particularly this year has been worse for everybody with all the rain that we had. So that was really what I did, and just made it a little bit more space and gave it all a place to just continue to shed. So yeah, I mean, if you use your cursor there, you can see the dark line. That's the leach field, which is directly behind the barn there. But you can see, that 467 grade to the 464, everything just shed right to the barn and pooled right up against the siding. Literally, it was higher than the elevation of the slab inside. So water literally just came in. So I basically just scraped out and carried around the back and kind of just created a natural, it needed to go somewhere. It shouldn't be in the building, So that's how this all evolved, so to speak.
Yeah, and you're saying you have water hitting the back of your house too, that there's a hill here, everything is heading down towards the garage and the house.
Yeah. So I try to just redirect everything naturally without, creating a problem, so to speak. But I think with just some, restore that section, and I'll talk to the engineer and come up with a plan or whatever you guys, want to see there. Like Mary and I spoke, I have no issue putting back whatever we want to put there. So my goal was to get the water out of the garage and hopefully help the house, So
Yeah.
Okay, well, Mary, would you like to just continue this discussion until spring sometime? And in the meantime, does anyone have a problem with Mr. Barry doing the site work that he did to channel the water away from his garage into the wetland. Okay, hearing no concerns about that. Shall we just continue this to maybe sometime in April? Mary, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. We can talk about, I'll do another site visit, Tim, and we'll, maybe try to figure out, talk about a little bit of plan, how to approach it, pull the gravel back and et cetera, what it's gonna look like, how far away from the wetland line you're gonna be, if you're gonna be able to have any kind of drive around, or does it look like that, it is actually right here, so you probably won't really have access on this side, it's too narrow.
Yeah, it's strange that where the stake is different from what's right there. So I think you and I, let's look at it. That arrow, that kind of jut is more down on the side of the garage.
Okay,
There is enough for me to get by, but I think you and I can walk it and, I'll be fine.
right,
I'll be fine restoring it right to where the stake is, no problem.
okay. Yeah, I think because we found this wetland flag and like that one, but we didn't find these ones. We didn't see the jut out.
Yeah.
I think that was, or maybe we were even looking at these ones and these ones are gone.
Right,
That is possible.
that's possible, because it's further than where we were, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
It might want to give some thought to bounds or boulder barrier or something like that.
That's right. We talked about that.
Okay.
There was
yeah, because
five.
they're on the plan here. So that was one of the things that they just hadn't been installed.
Right.
Okay.
And so that'll be part of the work.
Yeah, I'll make sure that we put those in. Yeah,
Great.
and then we can talk about plantings and so forth, and maybe between now and then, we work on that, Mary, like you said, and in April report what that plan is, and then by May 15th, I think you and I just said like that might be a reasonable time to have it done, just depending on the weather and so forth. But
Yep.
I'll work whatever you guys feel is adequate. So not a problem on my end.
All right, so we
Okay.
can maybe put you on a meeting either at the end of March or the first meeting in April.
Sounds good to me. And Allen Engineering will, update the plan as we need to reflect anything, if we need to show any plannings or anything like that. I
Okay.
had spoken to them and just told them, hey, this is kind of like a, little bit of a drop ball. And then I go, and then I did some stuff that I shouldn't have because of it. So I need some help here, so they understood.
Well, it's funny, I noticed on their as-built plan for the septic, they didn't include the bounds. Of course, because they weren't there, but they didn't mention that they should have been there. I thought was interesting.
It just seems, kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit of like,
Just-
what, like, way back then, and, when they did all the work.
Yep.
They hadn't owned it, it was part of the closing.
Yeah, so. Yeah,
Okay.
that's, sounds good.
All right. It does
Yeah.
sound good. Thank you, Mr. Barry, and
Thank you for having me,
we'll see you next spring.
you bet. And Mary,
Thank you.
just shoot me a note when you think you want to come out, and if I'm here, great. If not, you're more than welcome to take a look.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So the next thing on the agenda is the NOI for 12 Stoddard continued, but that's at 7:30. Do we want to move on to general business for 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. So that would be administrator's report. And see if I can share my screen. I think most of it's in the pictures, so. Tim Warren Street, and they were just looking to get their occupancy, so this was an addition and deck. It's mostly stable. I did talk to the owner about a few minor issues. He hasn't stabilized the lawn there, but it doesn't seem to be causing any trouble. Oh dear, this isn't the most recent version. Get rid of that. He's also had some stuff which is not on his property, I don't believe, at the edge. And he did say he was going to clean it up. It's right next to the wetland. And then he called later, I was out there and he had pictures of, this was after that 3-inch rainstorm. So the water was literally up to here in his backyard. So that was interesting. And he was just kind of wondering, what could be done about that. And just seemed like, I don't know that there's a culvert under the road that needed cleaning or anything. I don't know. It was a lot of water, I think.
Yeah, that culvert came up. Oh yeah, I guess, is this the property you were saying was?
Yeah, I emailed you guys. I don't know if there's a culvert there or not.
Well, there is a culvert under School Street. So that would be just on the other side of the property there, right? On the other side of the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
between,
no,
the new house at 17,
Yeah,
between,
Bill
the new
Anderson's
house.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, there is our inventory shows a culvert under School Street at that location. So it's
Yeah.
possible that it is, or it's just possible that it was overwhelmed by an amount of water it could not shed. That just took time.
right,
Bill,
'cause this
is that
was
the,
the week before.
Is that the culvert that flows into the essentially it's a detention basin lot next to Andrew's new house? Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
well, so this is that lot next to Andrew's
Oh, okay.
new house.
Okay.
So it would flow across the street to the other side, I think.
At
Okay.
this point, I don't know which way it flows.
Yeah,
and I know
I
is that
can
there's one
I
there.
can provide a little bit of history there. This was many years ago. There was someone wanted to build on this lot, on the detention basin lot, and part of that whole process, it went on for a long time, was to look for that culvert. And the DEP actually tried to do a dye test to see if they could see any flow from the detention basin to the other side of School Street, and they could not detect any flow. So if there is a culvert there, unless it's been upgraded since then, which was probably 20 years ago, the culvert probably isn't functional, even if it is still there.
Yeah, and Bill said when they did the digging to put his sewer and stuff in, they found another layer of School Street like 2 feet down that was under the School Street that was there. So
Yeah.
and then and he knows where the culvert goes through because he found it supposedly. There you can see the little inlet, but he's not sure if it's doing anything.
Yeah, we did find it way back when the DP did the dye test, and there was no flow through the culvert that could be detected. So
yeah.
Anyway, historical information.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you.
And this is I did a site walk at Misco Springs with Isabella Genova, who's the new agent in Mendon, and DeShang and the builder. And this was unfortunately a wetland infraction on the Mendon side, which we discovered during our site walk, which was probably even worse than the Upton one. You can't see, it goes way down and then goes way down that way. And this is what it came from. So DeShang and the builder were going to talk about how he was going to restructure this open field so that it would not happen. And hopefully, we discovered this on Friday before the 3-inch rainstorm on Monday. Desheng told the builder, you have to get this cleaned up before Monday. So hopefully he did. It's Mendon's kind of business, but that was what came out of that site walk. Isabella's been on for a month, so she's getting kind of tossed into the deep end here. But hopefully with Desheng's help, they can get this straightened out. And I just, that was an interesting walk. You know, when we walked further up, this is about the high point on the property, I would say. We walked all the way up here, and they've put in some of the infrastructure along the road there for the storm sewer, but it's not complete. And so you walk up there and you can listen. It sounded like there was a river going through that storm water. And I'm like, where's this coming from? He's like, oh, it's just like groundwater or whatever. And then he said, but because it's Misco Springs, I guess there's a ton of groundwater there, a lot of water moving. So they like, either they tapped into that when they put the stormwater in, pipe in, or who knows, but it's a challenging site to operate, to work on, it seems like. So thankfully the Upton, we went and looked at the Upton portion, it looked fine, there were no issues. He's got it like triple, you know, temporary detention basin, etc. But hopefully he needs to do a lot more work, obviously, on this piece. Hopefully he'll get that done. And this is on 140, next to Gasco, between Gasco and Prospect Street. The Monday storm, you know, on the 18th or whatever, made that sinkhole a lot worse. So I got an email at like 8 o'clock that night saying, oh, can you give us that emergency cert for tomorrow? So I didn't quite get it for them when they wanted it, but they got it. I think they started anyway, because it clearly needed doing, but we had met and talked to them. So this is their machine. This is the concrete blocks in the stream. And here it is. If you drove by, it was a pretty impressive operation. So I don't understand exactly what it is, but they slipped some kind of plastic in there to put, and then they had to cure the new pipe in place. So they didn't have to do any digging. It's pretty slick. They said it was like the first one of these they'd done in our part of the state, or one of the first ones. It takes a couple days. I don't know I haven't driven there since right before, you know, the weekend before Christmas. I think this was the Thursday before Christmas, but they thought they were going to be done in a day, and everything was going to be all set. Here's the other side. The water looked clean flowing out. They did have a little boom in there, and all they had to do was divert. I think there's 2 pipes, so they diverted all the flow to the other pipe while they were working on this one. They had sandbags in the water. It was a pretty slick job, so that was interesting. And then Pat wanted me to go out and look at 28 High Street, which is kind of a condemned abandoned building that the town now owns, which they're probably going to use. You know, they need to tear the building down, but they'll probably use the lot for affordable housing, but there's wetland on it. I think that's the highlights. Nothing else terribly important, I don't think. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Administrative report, meeting minutes from the 13th of December. Has anybody
Grace
had a
sent
chance
them
to look
out.
has anyone had a chance to look at those minutes?
Yep.
I actually have not, but if the majority thinks they're okay, you know, let's have a motion for that. Or not, we can delay approval till January.
I'll move that we accept the minutes from December 13th.
Second,
Hey, roll call vote, please, by name, voice vote.
Marcella, I.
Alan, I.
Sandy, I.
David, I.
Mike abstains since I didn't read them. Okay, anything else on the administrative report that should
I
be
think
talking about?
I put the financials, there were no changes with the finances, no new expense vouchers, no new bills. So financial update is pretty much the same.
Okay, thank you. Next is Open Space Committee update. We've got about 4 minutes, Bill. If we need more time after the hearing, we can.
All right, well, so I had some communication with Bill McCormick, who's representing the owners. He says he has found somebody who's interested in the property, and I think was looking for a commitment letter in terms of, I need to confirm this with him, but a commitment letter in terms of the, essentially somebody committing to pay for the backland. So I guess my one question is there any money available from the conservation fund for that? Because I don't think, I'm assuming it's going to be roughly $50,000 to $60,000. And I don't think, certainly we don't have that kind of money, and certainly not something we can commit to. But if we, the Open Space Committee, can raise money from other sources, some contribution from the conservation fund may be helpful.
Okay. Well, thanks, Bill. That's good. That's good news. I think I mentioned Open Space that, maybe I actually may make a donation to Metacomet to assist with this purchase. So, just full disclosure, I am a board member of Metacomet, but so I would suggest that I bring this up with the Metacomet board and to see if they're interested in perhaps coordinating this, raising the money, and seeing the purchase through. I mean, some town funds could, if could be injected into that, or it could be just all private funding. Bill, what are your thoughts on that? Does that sound like a reasonable approach? Or
Yeah, and it's on we have an open space meeting tomorrow night. It's on and that's the agenda item, so we can talk more about it tomorrow night. So at this point, I'm just presenting the idea essentially to the Conservation Commission of perhaps supporting the purchase in some way. And just for the benefit of the members, the Conservation Commission members, this would be all of the land in the riverfront area. So the 200 feet on either side of Warren Brook, and then the land between Warren Brook and it doesn't extend all the way, but between Warren Brook to Warren Street. It totals about 15 acres.
And then there would what we presented was a strip of land off of Warren into the backland for access.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and this property would it abuts the Robertson CR to the north and to the south. There's the Kibbe tax taking land. So there's potential for a trail that would run a good distance along Warren Brook if this parcel was acquired as open space.
Oh, excuse me, how much is in the conservation fund? I forgot.
I think there's around 20, but plus or minus, maybe.
I don't need the
18,
exact number, just around 20,000.
19, it looks like around 19, 18, 7,
Yeah.
22. And those funds can be expended without,
Right.
town meeting vote of any kind. Okay, well, it's 7:30. Bill, anything else, or we can for open space at this time?
Nope, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Alrighty, so 7:30, NOI for 12 Stoddard Street continued. Mary,
Yeah, I don't know if Luraval is gonna make it, but I know the engineer was not gonna make it. But here is his revised plan. And we do have a DEP number at this point. Okay. So I think one of the things that was asked was to change the boulders so that they wrapped around this way, like this. And then he has temporary erosion controls on the top of the wall, or he has erosion controls on the top of the wall for the construction of the addition. And then the erosion controls continue around here, and he's going to have to move some. These are the existing erosion controls, so these are going to go and new ones are going to go up.
We can't see anything, Mary, if you're trying to show us something.
Oh, I didn't do the share. Thank you, Tom. There we go. Is that better?
Yep.
So boulders been fixed. Erosion controls on top of the wall. Erosion controls surrounding the whole work site, allowing for access, you know, right up next to that wetland there. And then removing the existing erosion controls. So those were the changes to the plans. I guess he added a few more. I think those are the red maples that Luraval wanted installed.
Mary, I'm just curious, were the boulders his idea or yours?
That was the engineer. I don't know if the engineer, I don't know that Luraval suggested it. I don't know that this engineer, Dan McIntyre, I don't know how often he works in Upton. He didn't know that we had the placards. He was fine with the placards. And I guess, I don't want to, just for your knowledge, this whole area of wetland was disturbed mainly by removing vegetation. And then this whole area, this section, especially since this is now considered wetland, the flags had gone along the stone wall here, but after he redid it, he altered them out. This section, had, the soil was disturbed as well, and he seeded this whole section. I told him to leave this section just alone and not seed it because there seemed to be a lot of undergrowth. You could see skunk cabbage and ferns and stuff that are going to come back. So, and the DEP comments were, they were concerned about, wetland restoration. We can let's pull up the DEP comments. Oh, well, that and the deed. Now Luraval just bought, he told me, he just bought the one section of the property. It's actually 2 lots. There's one lot that goes here, and then where the septic is on a completely different lot. So he told me he bought this lot, but DEP looked on the registry and couldn't find it, the record of that. So we do need to confirm that before issuing the order. That was their one comment. And then the other concerns were just about 2-year monitoring and 75% survival of planted area. So at the moment, the way this project is looking, he's got plantings in the buffer. All the rest is in the buffer, and he's not touching the wetland at all. And like for this area, I feel really good about that because there is a lot of undergrowth that's still there. This section, it was driven on, he seeded it with grass. I think it was just regular grass. But there is skunk cabbage in here as well that you can see coming through. So I think we could leave it and see what happens. That's kind of how I wrote up the conditions, that we leave all the wetlands for now, look at it, next summer and see what's working. And maybe then, you know, if it doesn't look good, ask him to do restoration work. Or we could, you know, decide that he should do that now. But I can pull up the sample conditions if you guys want to look at those. I did put together conditions for this, knowing that Laravel really wants to get started so that we could approve conditions tonight if you guys wanted to.
Mary, are you okay with the boulders? I mean, are those would just be a supplement to wetland bounds, or are those?
Well, the way we kind of left it is that we have the placards, and that the idea was he's going to put some placards on the boulders. Yeah, it's up to you guys. I mean, Upton typically just does bounds, and that's easy, and that's, you know, that's our typical process. You know, in Webster, we didn't have a very consistent way of dealing with a no disturb line. Sometimes we did use boulders. And it does, and sometimes we use plantings, which can be cut down. The bounds are good. We can put placards on some of the boulders. And I don't know how the homeowner feels about it, really. It was the engineer's idea. So we could say bounds or whatever.
Are there a stockpile of boulders on site? Is that...
I don't know that there's a huge stockpile.
There's
There may be
one-
some, and they may run into some
Yeah.
over here. And there's that huge wall. Let's see the pictures. He's got this huge wall, which he's going to have to disturb part of it. I don't know where he got, these were all existing, I guess. I don't know, because he rebuilt this wall. That was the reason we stopped him in the first place. He does have some boulders over there, I guess. Maybe that's part of it.
Well, perhaps we could ask if they'd be willing to do bounds instead, and maybe go back to plan, how many bounds would be needed, and
Yeah.
The other thing
What is
that,
wrong with- I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, what is wrong with boulders? And putting the placards on them? Is there anything wrong with it? I don't see the problem with it. I'm not aware.
Haven't we allowed that before? I think we have
Mhm.
done that, allowed people to do something like that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, I was just asking because I didn't know if there was a reason he was doing that instead of bounds, or if he just was suggesting.
Well, we have used boulders, but usually that's because there's a lot of them available on the property.
Right.
But I didn't really see any boulders big enough to do the job. I mean, that many. They're gonna truck in boulders. Do we want them doing that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, it might be more expensive for the homeowner to truck in the boulders and install, maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 bounds.
I mean,
So,
the rocks that he's taken out of off the stone wall aren't gonna be considered boulders, are they?
No, they're not big enough.
No, so I don't know. I'm inclined to use what's there naturally. Boulders, sure. We like boulders.
Mhm.
If there aren't, then bounds.
Yeah, we can put that into the conditions, I think would say. And what do you guys think about, we had talked about putting like our wetland markers on the top of his retaining wall on the corners and stuff? Is that okay? Or should I have him just install little bounds like in the corner, like there, and maybe one there and maybe one there? What do you think?
Whatever's common sense for me,
Yeah.
If they're attached on top of a boulder, that's pretty permanent, isn't it?
Yeah, as long as it's not, if it's like the retaining wall is flat to the grass and, vegetation grows over it, that might hide it, but.
I don't know. It's all case specific.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
Both bounds,
if there's a chance that grass is going to grow over that retaining wall, then I would go for
Ah.
some posts.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe just
Okay.
elevated, not very high, but just something, maybe 6 inches, 8 inches.
yeah,
So, and the other thing about the boulders, the spaced at 2-3 feet, that's pretty close spacing.
yeah,
I mean, I think the job would be done, but with, 4 feet, 5 feet even, rather than 2 to 3 feet, but.
Maybe that's what the engineer does in other places.
yeah, I feel like this is something, yeah, it was his suggestion, and, I've seen people do that before. Yeah.
Well, what's the consensus with the bounds? Bounds or boulders?
I think boulders look better than bounds, but I'm looking at this thing, I'm not sure that the way they have that they plan on putting that many boulders in there. I would think that was just to kind of show, but I think it should be frankly up to the homeowner. The homeowner prefers boulders, let them do boulders. If you can explain to him that bounds are cheaper, maybe he'll go that way, but I still think it should be more the homeowner's decision than ours.
That's 24 boulders, Tom. That's a lot of boulders.
I don't think they're going to put that many in. I think that's just to show on the
Mm.
plans.
I don't, it could even be more at that
It's
spacing
an
too.
engineered plan. I would expect it to be accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know what the scale is on this thing, Mary, but do we know what the length of that boulder barrier is? So it's
Oh,
about 40, it's maybe about 120 feet or so, just eyeballing it.
Yeah.
So if it's 120 feet divided by 3, that's 40 boulders.
that's a lot.
More than 24. Well, I counted them, so.
And I personally would be fine with boulders, but I would space it out more, like about maybe 5 feet. And
Okay.
then ask for the markers to be placed every so often, whatever we think. Every 4th.
I agree. Yeah, a mix.
That makes sense.
Common
Okay.
sense.
Okay, any further discussion on this?
You guys have comments on the wetland disturbance?
My only comment is I don't know how they're going to get around the back of that building with equipment. And when you look at the property, which you can see easily from the road, it'd have to be very precise with their equipment.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's why the engineer originally said there was going to be no access back here and they were going to do everything from here. But I think it's a tricky site because he's got these walls here. I don't know how. So
Yeah.
it's good.
Well, we'll see. They're right out there in front of everybody, so.
Can't hide what you're doing. Yeah.
I think waiting till
I'll
the
be
summer
able
would be
to see how they
fine.
work it out.
As far as the wetland goes, I think if you could wait, that would be okay. I think we'd be better off if it'll come back on its own. Let it do that. If not, then we should, put a restoration plan in place.
Yeah,
I
I think
agree.
the concern is with this lot is going to be that there was a ton of bittersweet in there, and so what's going to happen is that's probably going to come back too. And he was trying to get that stuff out, so it'll be interesting to see if we leave it, what happens. But there was all that skunk cabbage in there, which I'd hate for him to disturb,
Is there some way to measure how successful, how early can we see that the wetland is successfully recovering from this?
Yeah, so
cabbage
I tried to
the-
write that up in the conditions. Let's see what I wrote. Right. I said disturbed wetland should be evaluated at the end of the first growing season for recovery. If the wetland is found to have 75% cover by native species, then that'll be considered a good start toward recovery. And then at this time, the commission can decide whether additional measures are required. Commission reserves the right to have the applicant hire a wetland scientist to come up with a wetland restoration plan if necessary. This may require an amendment. If no further restoration is required, the wetland shall be evaluated again after 2 years for recovery, which shall be defined as 95% cover of native species. So that's an idea.
That sounds good. Is 95% overly optimistic or given with the bittersweet and other
Yeah,
ways?
well, it's something to discuss for sure. Yeah, it may be optimistic. Yeah, given the
no
history of
problem.
that site.
Yeah. No, this seems fine.
It's good to me.
Any further thoughts on this? Okay, Mary, do we need a vote?
I think it would be good to have 2 votes. If we vote to, close the public hearing, 1, and then vote to, if you guys are okay with these conditions, vote to issue the order of conditions. Everything else is standard. And I'll change the boulders to reflect what we talked about with no disturb signs.
Okay, well, is there a motion? Or a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, voice
We-
vote. And this,
Aye.
are we combining the two motions?
I
Mary?
think
we
you
do
can
that?
do that. So
Yeah,
close
we
the
can do
public
that.
hearing and issue an order of conditions
Yes,
as
yes.
presented or whatever.
Okay. So, voice vote, please.
Tom, I.
Alan, I.
David, I.
Sandy, I.
Marcella, I.
Mike, aye. All right, thank you.
This is Bill. So I found the deed.
Oh, good.
However, he bought it at auction and then assigned his right to purchase it to somebody who, a LLC, which is a trustee for another LLC. So it's not in his name. And I don't know what he is presented in terms of who the owner is. And I have no idea. I'd have to do some more work to determine if he has any interest in the LLCs that are involved. It's not clear from the name. And the other thing is, did you say he bought both parcels or just one?
Right. So he originally, this is the question, Bill. So he originally purchased the one with the house on it, which would be
Right.
12 Stoddard. And maybe I have to look at Mass Mapper to figure out what the number and the other one is. It's probably 0 Stoddard. That one he just bought this fall, very recently. The
I'd
owner
have to
used
do
to
some more
be,
work because I can't find any evidence of that.
the owner used to be Ed Shaughnessy for 0 Stoddard.
And I think Ed sold it to a different, a woman, Shaughnessy, who then later become Curatsy. I think she ended up marrying the guy whose house got sold at foreclosure.
Oh, maybe it's Edith. I just see E Shaughnessy. Maybe the E is a woman. I don't know.
Yeah, that's Edith.
Okay.
All right. Well, in any case, I'll do some more work. But I did find at least a deed for one of the parcels.
Yeah, so the second one is where the septic actually is. And it was just this fall. He said he bought it in cash and blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
Well, it's possible the deed never got recorded.
Yeah. So I'll make sure he gets that done.
Yep. And
Okay.
then again, I don't know whether or not the fact that he's may or may not have any ownership interest in any of this is an issue.
Right. Yeah, well, I think he has to own the property to put the septic on it, doesn't he?
I'm shocked that the DEP bothered to confirm that he owned it. So It's entirely possible that he represented himself as the owner and everybody said, okay.
You know, it's a good question for our friendly neighborhood Board of Health. You know,
Yeah,
they apparently approved this plan. I would ask Diane, Mary,
Mhm.
if they've got any thoughts on this or ran into this before. Okay, well, we're up to 343 Mendon Street enforcement order. I see Matt is on. So Mary, could you update us on this?
Yes, that's right. So I met Matt out at the property. And the main change from last time is last time there had been kind of at the edge of his driveway closest to his northern property, you know, there had been an overflow, a little gully going down into the wetland, and he's got that pretty well stabilized now with, you know, he's got like a gravel berm and some rocks and stuff. And so he's not seeing any, you know, drainage going over that and causing damage. He's also got, I think you've got more of your driveway covered with gravel, a little bit more work done on that part, Matt.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's still work to be done in the spring. You want to describe, he's going to still do some seeding on the hillside.
Yeah, I'm just gonna reseed it a few times, make sure it all takes, and they'll all be stabilized and good to go.
Yeah, and I think someone noted that on the other side of his driveway, he's got, you know, stockpile of dirt. And this is not sure that we thought it's probably outside the buffer zone. Matt and I looked at it. There is no wetland. You know, there's a depression to the left. If you're looking at his house from the road, to the left of his driveway, there's a depression there, but it's not wetland. It's, you know, a low area.
Yeah, I mean, that dirt's not even going close to the wetland. It's gonna be used elsewhere, so.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have anything to do with it.
Okay, so Mary, do you have a recommendation? There's an open enforcement order. Should we just continue this till spring?
Yeah, I think we should continue it until spring. I think it's relatively stable for the winter. It's looking a lot better
nothing
than.
happened in this past rainstorm, so. If
Oh,
nothing.
did it do
doing that,
okay for that past rainstorm? That's
Yeah.
good. That was the test.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a disaster on a site in Mendon, Matt, that was pretty bad.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I saw that on that Moon Hill as well, whatever that new
Oh.
one is. On the
Oh, I
big,
haven't been out there.
Northbridge.
Oh, yeah.
Well, any thoughts on continuing this from the rest of the board? Or the commission, excuse me.
Works for me.
Okay, let's, shall we talk again, say, first meeting in April, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay,
you guys don't want to just close it out?
well, I
think,
think, well, what is the sense of the commission on that? I would prefer to keep it open.
It's been going on for, you know,
I know it has.
a year.
I know it has, but it's a steep slope. But what's the rest of the commission feel? We could close, there could be a motion to close or to where does extinguish the enforcement order?
I'd like to
like to
keep it
keep it
open.
Provides the
the
winter.
hailstorm.
So
Sorry, Tom.
that's the consensus I'm hearing, is to keep it open. Okay, but we appreciate the work you've been doing, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not, you know, it's, don't take that as a negative.
No.
So, please.
Yep.
All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for making time
so-
to come on a meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
So next up, Land Use Committee update, and Laura from SVT is on the line. I think Laura would like to discuss some issue that was discovered at Sweetwilliam Farm during the CR walkthrough with Marcella. I don't know if Marcella or Laura, which one of you wants to go first, but
Did the pictures that Laura sent me and Mike go to everybody else, or can we bring them up so people can see?
I can pull them up, yes.
Hi, everybody.
hey, Laura.
Hey. What is happening is that vegetation like waste and yeah, here you can see this is being piled on top of existing stone walls, and the other issue they have is all the this is especially there's a stone
this
wall
was
under there.
particularly, yeah. So they're
but-
either piling it on or right up to, so it's a combination of this compost waste, brush waste. Is there another slide?
Yeah, I think so.
And then they also have rocks they're pulling out of the field that they're kind of pushing up to the wall. This may not be the best example of that.
But you can see that there's new rocks and the old stone wall rocks. You can clearly see what has been dumped there and what was existing. But the old rocks have the moss and lichen on them. So
that might have been only the 3 slides that I sent to you. I have more photos, but it was hard to send them all. Oh, that's just our route of the visit. Yeah. And so I was kind of surprised to find that in some cases they were just directly piling things on the wall. It just kind of surprised me that they would do that. But you know, after I went back home and reread the CR, I felt like we really need to ask them to remove the material that's on the walls and remove the material that's like pushed right up to the walls. And Grace was saying, oh, where am I going to put it all? I'm just like, well, not on the walls. You know, just, you know, she has options. They have options of where they want to put it. I don't think it's up to us to provide that solution per se, just to make sure that wherever they put it, it's not once again in violation of the
and the question also was from Grace is the size of these stone walls. When we map them, we sort of categorize them based on size and quality of the construction. And this area was largely composed of what we referred to as sad little walls, which was sort of like the lowest grade. You know, they weren't substantial, but they're there. And
well,
it's
some of them, yeah, there were some sections that were sad, but some of them weren't that sad. So I would say it was mixed.
But Grace's point was that, you know, she didn't really see that there was much there to protect. And my feeling is if we bother to map it and make note of it and take pictures of it, then the intent was to protect it. So, yeah, I do think I would agree with your suggestion to have her remove the material. There are some places that she can put it. You know, it's a problem. She's going to have rocks every year. That's not going to go away. There's going to be vegetation waste produced every, at least that, you know, breaks down. And they were called on it, you know, when they were clearing fields at the other end of the property. Some of the stone was being put on top of an existing stone wall, albeit it's a boundary wall, but they were asked to remove those and they did. But that, you know, they've already been called on it once at a different site.
I see. I don't think I remembered that, yeah.
but the quality of the wall is very different,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
yeah, and it being a boundary wall made a difference too.
Well, I would suggest we work with them to find a suitable area to dispose of the stone on site, or, you know, they would have to dispose off site. I agree with the concerns about the material being placed on the existing walls, mapped walls.
So Marcella, you said these were quote sad little walls. Would, if that's the case, wouldn't it be okay for them to put the stones they pull out of the fields on those? Wouldn't that just make them bigger and better?
The point being is that what was remaining of the walls was the historic remnants. And that was what we wanted to make sure remained. By building the walls up, you're changing what the historic remnants are.
So, and I will just say that from my perspective, if it was a sad little wall that they wanted to actually place stones on and make it a wall, I personally, I mean, I realize it's not necessarily historic, could see a way to approving that. The problem is what's happening is they're like this photo is a good example of a million different sizes of stones, and they are not going to take the time to place them to create a wall. So yeah, that's the other issue. But yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you could say that, well, that the stone walls got there because farmers pulled the stones out of the field and made walls out of them. So why can't they keep doing that? And I would agree with that. As long as it doesn't look like a junky pile like this.
So then we should have a conversation about, there's kind of like two issues. One is remove what's there, and the other is to discuss whether or not they have the okay to enhance the stone walls that already exist, but to do it in a consistent with historic stone wall building. Is that something you would propose? I mean, I wouldn't really
It's
have a
something
problem
to be
with that.
considered, but I doubt they're going to go for that because I doubt they're going to want to take the time to really do that. But I certainly would consider it.
But this, it's not like a whole lot of people are seeing this, but it isn't, it isn't what the stone walls looked like when we
right.
mapped them out.
And I feel like what unfortunately was happening is that in my view of it, it was like they were obliterating these like all around the field because their method was, oh, we're just going to push everything just out. And so to me, that's like, whoa, that's the worst extreme. Whereas if they were to have identified with one of you, okay, here are some sad little wall areas where you can add to, even if it's not like the most perfect construction, because the sad little wall is so sad, at least, you're not damaging everything. But the way they're doing it now, it's just like,
right,
it's crazy. It's like, this is a really good example of how bad it can look.
Well, I think I would be supportive of having more stones added to the walls if it were done in a consistent with historic methods, and not just dumping small rocks.
Exactly.
And I don't know what those farmers did with all those smaller rocks. They maybe
I know
they put them back in the field so that Grace could find them.
I've seen discard piles of them on some properties. Like we have a discard.
Yeah,
there are some stone piles on the former Sweetwoman farm.
Yeah.
Typically more cobble, like grapefruit size stones that were probably removed from someone's vegetable garden. Yeah.
I also feel like I want to give them, like, I don't want to go in there and say, oh, you have to do this tomorrow. So I do want to give them a reasonable amount of time to do it, but it will be good. I don't know their busy periods. I mean, I know she seems to always be busy, but
It's always
Yeah.
busy.
yeah, so I mean, but I just feel like it needs to get done. And so,
So, can I make a suggestion that,
Yeah.
Perhaps SVT, drafts a letter?
I can't because I'm leaving
Usually,
for New Zealand.
yeah,
Um,
or well, let's remove the SVT part, that somehow jointly a letter is drafted between the commission and SVT, since we co-hold this conservation
Yes.
restriction.
yes.
And then the letter can be reviewed and perhaps approved at another meeting, and then it can be, provided to Grace. Does that sound like a reasonable way to
Yep.
proceed?
Yeah.
I don't know, Laura, will there be someone at SVT?
So I think Dan could review and sign
Okay.
whatever in my absence, or Lindsay could sign it, but Dan would be the person to review the letter and provide any edit. And then right, unfortunately, because I'm leaving, Kristen's still on maternity leave. So I was hoping you guys could do the interface with Grace.
Well, the commission can take the first shot at a draft and then provide it to Dan.
Okay.
And, go from there.
Thank you. Any chance you want to talk about Lake Wildwood before I go?
It is on the agenda. We could do that. The last week or a couple of weeks ago, just to let the commission know, we received an email from the town manager, or Mary did actually, that there was some interest in selling some parcels on Lake Wildwood. Mary, if you could, I have the folder I could perhaps share too if you don't have it handy, but
why don't you try and I'll look while you try.
see if we can find an arrow here. Share screen. All right, trying to do it. Can you guys see it?
No,
Oh, wait a minute. You gotta hit the share button. Sorry about that.
that helps.
Now can you see it?
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So there's actually, I think 5 parcels. One of them is in Grafton. You can see the cursor.
Oh, yeah.
This one's in Grafton. This is the town line here.
I see.
And then there's 1, 2, 3, I think 4 in Upton. And, they abut the railroad. All this land, I'll show another figure in a minute. All this land here is, or most of it is open space owned by Grafton or the Grafton Land Trust. Upton owns a strip of land that goes from William Street. Let me see if I can get what I'm doing here. Yeah, if you can see this one, that pink strip of land is Upton purchased that a few years ago. So it actually provides access to the to those parcels from William Street. And then this is the Grafton Land Trust trail map. You can, in this, here's Lake Wildwood and those parcels. You can see they already have trails on them. But the essentially the land is adjacent to open space owned by the town of Grafton, and or the Grafton Land Trust. We're only a couple hundred acres. I don't know exactly how many acres, but probably several hundred acres of open space. So it's also mapped as biomap core habitat, rare species habitat. Probably the rare species habitat is probably brindle shiner, a fish, which occurs in Lake Wildwood.
Good stuff.
So figure out how to stop sharing here. Uh-oh. Anyway, so, what I would suggest is maybe sometime in January we get a meeting together of interested conservation folks, SVT, Grafton Land Trust, maybe Metacomet, Grafton Conservation Commission, Upton Open Space, just to see how we might approach this, acquiring these parcels. Just get the project rolling, figure out who might pay for an appraisal, who's going to make another contact with the owners, whether it's going to be the Upton Town Manager who had the initial contact or somebody else. To me, it's a really it should be a high priority project, given the chance that the railroad could purchase this land. I don't know how real that is, but that would be a fairly sad outcome if the railroad purchases land. And with as we found out in Upton, and Laura, you probably know, there aren't very many controls on railroad property. Local bylaws don't apply.
Wow.
Wetlands Protection Act doesn't apply.
Wow.
Yeah, they have some preemption, federal preemptions for most state and local regs. So they literally could, build up close to the pond, or clear and build. So that would probably be, I think we can all agree, that would be a worst case scenario if the railroad acquired this property. So any thoughts? Bill from Taylor, have you talked to Derek at all about this?
Joe,
Derek,
you mean?
excuse me, Joe.
No, has he responded to your email?
He has not, no. I called him and asked him to call me today. I haven't heard back. So between you and me, Bill, we'll try to talk to Joe and get some sense from him. The other potential source of funding, here, or somebody think about, would be an MVP grant. MVP grants are sometimes used to purchase open space, and there is a grant round coming up. I think applications are probably going to be due something like May or April, but it might be too soon to pull things together. So Laura,
Yeah.
the email that you sent was in your absence. We should keep Tony in the loop.
Yes. Yeah. Reach out to Tony when you're trying to set up that meeting.
Okay.
Is there, are we under time pressure to do something here? Do we, is there an imminent concern about the railroad making a purchase before we're able to cobble together some funding?
Well, we don't know. The owner has had, as far as I know, the only contact the owner has had with anybody about selling this land to the town was essentially Joe, and then I believe the assessor was part of that conversation as well. So I understand that she told Joe and Val that she had been approached by the railroad.
Oh,
So,
And the other issue may be, I don't know whether or not it will become an issue, is that I believe the land is essentially owned by her and her sisters. I understand it, as heirs. So she doesn't have, the woman who approached us does not have unilateral control over what happens with the property. So there may be some probate issues that still need to be resolved before the land could be sold regardless.
well, any objection to trying to establish or trying to organize a meeting sometime in January, at least from conservation partners?
No
Um,
objection, I
and-
would encourage it.
And then figure out who should approach the owners after that.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay, hearing no objection, that's the approach we'll take. And Laura, I'm sure this will still be around when you get back.
I hope so. Bye, everybody. I'll see you in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Okay,
Have a nice time.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
bye-bye.
One thing I find interesting is, of course, Wildwood is a lake because of a dam. And if for some reason the dam were ever to fail or somebody would decide to remove it, it's probably useful to note that the town of Upton owns the land under the lake.
We do.
Yep. We actually have a deed that says that.
Okay, well, that's a good discussion, and we'll try to talk to Joe. Mayor, I meant to ask, did you hear anything else about this from Joe?
No, I haven't
Okay.
at all.
All right. So we'll try to work that end, and maybe even at some point it might be a good idea to get on the selectmen's agenda and let them know that this is happening or something is happening potentially.
Good thought.
Give them a heads up on this. Okay. Looking at the agenda, Marcella, anything under Land Super Committee? You also had the Beaver Pond at Peppercorn on the
Yeah,
agenda.
that I was sort of bracing for the possibility that we may have to breach the dam because it's overtopping the trail. And Mary provided me with an emergency certificate to go ahead with that, and I approached National Grid, whose land it is, and let them know that. I had tried to reach Mike Callahan. He never called me back, but when I spoke with someone at National Grid, she said she'd put him on it to take a look at this site, but nothing's going to happen till after the holidays. So in the meantime, this area could be further eroding, or the beavers could be doing more, building things up more, but it's not our land. So, without express instructions from National Grid, I don't want to do anything. I'm sure there are liability issues involved, that they don't want anybody messing with it, that I think that they trust that Mike Callahan can manage it if there's something to do there. We did put up some signs that say that the trail is closed and for folks to choose an alternate route, because it's not passable. So unless you want to get your big rubber boots on. But I think the water is moving quickly enough that if you try to, a dog or a small child might not be able to deal with the speed of the water going over the top.
Mm.
And you know, you got to know it's an issue. If I'm talking about breaching a dam, you know there's an issue here. This is, you know, I typically let the beavers do what they need to do, but this is an issue for National Grid because they need access through there for their equipment if they need to do any work on those on the power lines at that location. And in the past, they've actually gone through the pond, which has been dry, and that's, you know, it's a wet area, but it seems to be dry enough for them to get vehicles through there. I know they put like a lot of straw down, and you know they make they create a path for their big vehicles. But so I'm sure National Grid is going to be motivated to do something, but what that is, we don't know. I think that's it for land stewardship. We are still on hold with the bridge at Warren Brook, but that's imminent. I'll probably be reaching out to, you know, anybody and everybody who's willing and able to help with the work to do that. It shouldn't take more than a day, but the more people on it, the less time it should take. But I don't know which day that's going to be. But you know, you'll hear from me. I'll be sending an email out and hoping for some volunteer help. So I think that is it for now.
I just want to thank you, Marcel. Down on the discussion items, just ratify. I think is that an emergency order for the Peppercorn Beaver Pond, Reach Beaver Dam, Mary?
Yes, that needs to be ratified.
You know, it may not be necessary. I mean, it's either close to expiring or yeah, because we can't do anything till after the holidays are over. It will expire before we get a chance. And I'm not sure it's even my place to have stepped in to do an emergency certificate. It's really National Grid that needs to deal with this. So I was just kind of bracing myself for the possibility of having to act quickly, and Mary kindly produced the emergency certificate, but I don't think it's necessary.
Alrighty. Anything else, Marcella?
I think that's it.
Okay. We can go down to discussion items. A couple of them we've already taken care of. Hoping to be done by 9. The next one on the list is a 2024 Trails Grant application, and that is for the bridge, the Warren Brook Bridge and the Robertson's Conservation Restriction. We applied for a grant for that bridge last year and did not get it. I'd like to propose that we reapply this year. Yeah, Mary, did you have that email that I sent?
Yes, I have the email, but I didn't see an attachment on it.
Oh, geez. I forget to attach it. All right, hold on here.
Yeah, you can send it again, and
I think I can probably share again as long as you know how to unshare. I wasn't able to do that, so okay. Can you see the? It's a just an Excel spreadsheet. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so what's on here is just in 2023 there were roughly 60 different trails grants awarded. There were around 90 applicants, so about 2/3 of the applicants got grants. And there were different classes of project. Our our bridge at Warren Brook was a hiker pedestrian trail project. And this is a list of all of the ones that were awarded, with the amount awarded, the match from the local sponsor or the grant applicant, and the total. And you can see that kind of the median was around $50,000 award, and the median match was about 25%. We asked for $80,000 with a 20% match. So what I'd like to suggest is that we reapply, but basically don't ask for as much money. Perhaps ask for something on the order of 50 to 60,000, so that we're more in line with the maximum grant that they awarded for hiker projects.
Do they still count volunteer hours, the value of volunteer hours as part of the match?
I don't know if they did or not. We did in
'Cause
our
we
application, we did include some of the effort we've already put in on this, permitting, the conceptual bridge design, things like that.
Because I think it was this grant that they were in the past when we've received funds from them. They that's where I got the link to the site where you can calculate what volunteer hours are worth based on skill level and what state you live in. And that was our match.
Well, there's probably not a whole lot of volunteer, potential volunteer hours with this project. I mean,
But it doesn't take many. It adds up, and we could take $1,000 off if which
I could see that happening, but
it could help.
This one really is going to need professional construction. There might be an opportunity for some volunteer labor to help carry in things and some aspects of construction, but you definitely need professionals directing this whole thing. But anyway, any thoughts on reapplying? Applications due in February. By then we should have a nearly final plans for the bridge. There's contract is underway right now for that, with a final cost estimate. And we'll be able to include that information in a grant application. And then I guess the question I'm asking is, what do people think about how much should we ask for? There's a fair chance construction's going to cost around 110 to maybe 120,000. The current 50% cost estimate for construction, I think it was like 106,000 or something like that. So, and we have $120,000 in proof from CPA funding, which we spent 13,000 on the design contract already.
So if we ask for less, where would the balance come from?
Well, the CPC would pay for more.
Will that go over, you think?
Well, if we don't get the grant, the CPC is on the hook for the whole thing.
Good point.
So again, what I guess the point I'm trying to make is, we tried for 80, didn't get it, and that's like $20,000 more than any other hiker project grant. The maximum award for a hiker project was 60,000 last year. So I personally think we should probably ask for less to increase our chances of getting the grant. I think it is a good project. I suspect the reason we didn't get it was the cost more than the quality of the project.
The ones that got like 50% and, and more, what were the projects?
Well, I could, there's I've got a PDF with a list of all the awards, and it describes the projects a little bit.
Were they similar to ours in any respect, or was it, is our project unique?
I don't recall seeing any other trail bridges,
Okay.
but I just quickly each one of these numbers has a town and a project name associated with it, but
Mhm.
I just was too lazy to type all that up. So
Well, if you think it'll increase our chances, I would go ahead and do that. If you think 60,000 is a reasonable amount to ask, it might give us a better chance. I would do it.
any further discussion? Do we need a motion to perhaps we need a motion to apply for the trails grant and then
Well, so this is Bill. Can I?
Yep.
Yeah, I think 60 is too much. I would probably go with 50 or 45, since anything we're going to get is in some respects a benefit to the town. So I think we'd be more likely to get an amount less than that based upon my review of the projects that were approved.
any
So are we going to decide on a dollar amount to propose tonight? Should we just go with?
Yeah, I think I'd like to do that. Like, yeah, if it's possible, maybe 50, as Bill suggests. And then what we have to do, we have to kind of run this by the town manager too. And because apparently the town manager needs to approve any grant application. We didn't do it last year with him because there wasn't the grant did not require a signature from the town, so we never even thought about bringing in the town manager to this discussion. But this year we need to do that. So I think I'd prefer if we had a motion that we could take to the town manager and say this is what we'd like to do.
I'll move that we reapply for the grant with a request of $50,000 based on approval from the town manager.
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah,
I think it's a good idea.
any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, voice vote, please.
Aye.
Alan, I.
David, I.
Sandy, I.
Marcella, aye.
And Mike, aye. Thank you. Okay, let's see, Maple Ave wetland encroachments. It's next on the agenda. Mary, is that?
Okay, yes. This came from a complaint, which I did forward to you all in an email a long time ago, came back in September. But we were busy and I have been to this site. It's not urgent encroachment. Here it is. So we'll have to look at a couple things here, and it may take a little bit of minutes going around. So this is kind of the site. It's been mowed for a while. They have some plantings here. There's also a fire pit and patio, which is new. This went in.
We can't see it, Mary.
Oh, sorry, I never hit the start share. This is a bad night for that.
Well, your
Thank you,
descriptions
Tom.
are very good. I'm picturing this in my mind.
All right, so here's the grassy area. And zoom in a little bit. Plantings there. Fire pit. And my guess is, and I'll show you the maps, but the wetland line probably runs something like this, maybe even further out. I did do soil tests and kind of confirmed that the soil is wet in this area. This is also within the line. There's dumping of leaves and stuff. Oh, and that's something else. So let's go back to so this is the aerial showing Maple Ave. Here's the condos. And I kind of guesstimated the wetland line from the plans and put it on. And so here you can see the fire pit, the mowed area, the plantings, and some of this stuff I think is dumping. And then the plans, which we really have to zoom in on to see anything. So this is kind of the area in question. And I believe there's no certificate of compliance here. And the limit of work is really just around the building envelope. So like this whole area is developed and some of it's wetland. Here's the wetland flags that I tried to show on the aerial. But really the limit of work is here. So it's rather a huge encroachment. There is no certificate of compliance, and the person who submitted the complaint had a full page, you know, he did a lot of research, looked at the plans, and apparently the order says that there's no additional wetland, and you know, it specifically there's a deed restriction that there will be no additional wetland disturbance because they already disturbed 5,000 square feet, you know, on this lot somewhere. You know, this is way back when, in 2000 or something, 2004. There is, I don't know that there's a 30-foot no disturb, but this is kind of the limit. It seems to be the proposed limit on the plans.
Who built it, Mary? Is it the person that developed that building, or isn't there multiple families living there?
Yeah, so this is a condo, so we don't know who actually did this. And the lawn's been maintained for years, I think. So the you know, the fire pit's kind of new, but the lawn's been there for quite a while. Looking at the aerials, I think as far back as they go, you know, 10 years back or whatever. But, you know, this is much older than that. So it's kind of a, you know, you do, in a sense, you feel for these people that are living in a condo, and obviously it's nice to have a little bit of green space to enjoy, but certainly the wetland portion is not good, and I don't know about the rest of it. So there's, you know, there's a number of issues here.
How big is the area outside the wetland? Would that be a significant, you know, yard space if we were to just keep things out of the wetland and let them maintain lawn in a area that, you know,
yeah, I think it's relatively significant. Yeah. I mean, this area, you know, that maybe that's a third of what they're maintaining. You know, if they just kept to their fence, they have, you know, basically nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I would suggest, you know, putting in some bounds to make sure that there isn't further encroachment or repeat encroachment on the wetlands, and trying to create an area for them to use as the yard if they, you know, want to keep it mowed and have a fire pit and all that fun stuff.
And yeah, the fire pit's in the well.
Oh yeah, that's not cool.
and the and there's, mulch and, nice, beautiful grass plantings that may have been there for a while. So, yeah.
Would they have needed a permit to put the fire pit in?
I would think so, not a building permit.
But they
Um,
probably should have at least had an RDA or something.
Yep, there should have been some kind of, well, for all of this work, you can't even mow a lawn really with a wetland.
Right.
But yeah, for the recent work should have had a permit, yep. And I think that's mainly where the complaint came from, is like, all right, well, the lawn maybe, but a fire pit,
Mm-hmm.
Enforcement order? Should we issue one? I'm sorry for the barking, got through hour and a half without barking, but I'm gonna mute.
yeah, I think you certainly could do an enforcement order here. My sense is it's probably, they're not aware. I would guess they're not aware that it's wetland. But. And I'm not sure who it goes to, there does not appear to be a homeowners association for this section, because when I talked to the Knowlton, Circle people, they have a homeowners association for that whole project. But these people are not included in it because they don't seem to have, I don't know that this is maintained by the same landscaping people. I guess that's a question. I don't know how that works with these people.
To research their deeds for the individual units to see, there must be some sort of a.
So they're like townhouse units with a little tiny bit of space in the back. Maybe they're, and do they have individual parcels? No, they don't.
No, there's no individual parcels. Yeah, I don't know how it works.
Do you even know who to contact? Which one of the residents there? Like who's?
Yeah, and who's maintaining that? That's a,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So only the one group has an association? And this
Yeah,
group doesn't?
It doesn't seem, well, maybe they do have one. I mean, it's two sets. There's another set, down the street a little bit.
I remember when those went in and there was no backyard, and we were all,
Yep.
it was tough to fit it in there, but they worked it out and we had to let it go. Remember, Mike?
I do very much.
So I'm,
So Mary, when you get back, could you draft up a enforcement order? And
Yeah.
we'll have to do some research to figure out who gets it, who to send it to, who to address it to.
send it to the homeowners association of the other building. They'll let you know if it's not them.
Well, that's a good something. That's a
It
good
might
point.
be
What Mary
both
said
in-
before was that there hasn't been a certificate of compliance issue.
Right, yeah.
So that's another issue.
Yeah, and that's gonna, hopefully that other homeowners association, they're working on getting their engineering done, and hopefully, we'll come to a point where we can issue them a certificate of compliance for that piece. But these people, they're gonna need one eventually too. One of these units we issued a partial for, it was sold, I don't remember when, but. All right, I can get that enforcement order going and see if I can figure out anything more about them, the homeowners association there.
All right, thanks.
I wonder if it's on the original order of conditions.
This is
What
the
do you-
Sam Reen thing, and when I did the original letter to the Knowlton Circle people, I sent it both to a homeowners association and to the people I issued that the order was written under, and those people, it bounced back that it was not delivered. The address is no longer valid.
Oh,
Well, could we have 4 enforcement orders and just, send each one of these condo owners one? Just so they
Yeah, we
all,
could. Yeah, then they can say who done it.
well, somebody who lives there's got to know a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah,
And they all have an incentive to get the certificate of compliance on their
yep,
deeds, because at some point there's going to be sale and some attorney is going to raise the issue.
Yeah.
It may not have happened yet, but we all know it will.
yeah.
Alrighty, that's it for this. Ratify emergency certificate for Milford Street for the culvert replacement that Mary discussed earlier.
I move that we ratify the emergency certificate for the culvert on Milford Street.
So
second,
moved.
Any discussion? Okay, voice vote, please.
Tom, I.
Alan, I.
David,
Sandy, I.
Marcella, I.
Mike, aye. All right, thank you, Mary.
Mhm.
All right, next is FY25 budget. Is that something we can kind of put off, or do we need to discuss that tonight?
Well, it was due the 22nd.
Yes, we do.
And I think it's there's not a lot to do with it. Since, there was some talk of trying to combine things more, and that's what I explained to you at the last meeting. But I think when it came down to it, and I don't know what the discussion was between Joe and Kenny, but what we came back with is just present it as you have in the past, but this document's gonna fall under a central document that Mike's writing. And the only numbers that have changed here are the salaries and wages. And this is what Grace would get if she stays at her current level. And what I'm confused about is if she does get a promotion to assistant planner, which is being proposed, I'm not sure if we'll pay part of that or whether she'll stay at her current rate for us. And then she'll only get a little bit of a bump up for the 20 hours that she's working as a planner. So I'm confused about that. And I don't think they've decided that. So this is the base rate of what she would get. She might get more. And then this is just the standard increase that they give to everybody for this year. And it's pretty much the same as we submitted last year. The $9,000, same. This year, we're gonna, I think, in an effort to perhaps combine things better, next year, we're just gonna start tracking things a little bit differently. We'll probably have a few more categories in here. So we'll have a better idea of, this goes to, I don't know, wood for trails, and this is going for legal ads. And so we can just see a little bit, we'll have more line items, and eventually they may try to combine it. They may not, I don't know. So there was a lot of discussion and a lot of work, but in the end, it's not changing much. So
Okay.
I think we can just
Okay,
vote
good.
to approve it or whatever, if you guys
I'm
want.
just gonna ask that if there's a motion to approve the proposed FY25 budget.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion?
No,
Hearing none, voice vote, please.
Tom, I.
Alan, I.
Sandy.
Marcella, I.
Mike, aye. Right, see, next up is the 2023 annual report. I think we've got a draft that still needs some work.
Oh, yeah, I didn't look at it too closely. I see that now.
Yeah, and, what I would suggest, it's, since it's 8:50,
Yep,
why don't we, if we why don't we work on some revisions to this and then have it available for review and approval at the next meeting in January.
Right, put it on the top of the agenda.
Yeah, we'll make
Yep.
sure we get it taken care of. If there's no objections to that, we can move on. We've talked about the CR monitoring at Sweet William Farm. Next is One Dogwood Drive easement letter.
yeah, I don't know whether you guys want to review that tonight or not.
I would propose that we skip over that too for.
Yeah, it could be a long discussion, that's fine.
It could be, yeah.
Put
And
it on the top of the
At some
agenda.
point, do we need town manager, town council review of that letter? I wonder. But
Certainly town manager, yep.
yeah, okay. I don't know, Mary, do you think it's ready for Joe's input? Or Michael's input, whoever's gonna
I
review
think
it?
Bill was gonna do a little research on whether the utility easement is something the DPW was willing to get rid of. That
So
was the thing that was open still.
Okay. Well, let's put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay,
And then next is 11 Hartford Ave, letter of compliance.
yes. And this is just simple. Maybe I just should have sent it, but I thought you guys might want to approve it. So this was a determination, and really the homeowners kind of wanted to know that they were good. They asked for a letter, which I wrote a while back. So, and this is a little tricky because there's two property owners, and the one was complaining he didn't like the bounds, and the others are kind of fine with it, and they're the ones who want the letter saying that they're good. So the work is completed. The bounds represent the limit of disturbance and were included in the original plans. No mowing or dumping of yard waste should occur in the area beyond the bounds. That's kind of the official stance of the commission that we discussed. So,
I think that's fine.
yeah.
It gives them something.
Any other
Yeah.
discussion?
No,
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Send them a letter. Okay, next is Mechanic Street parking area design. This is another one that might take some discussion. It would have been actually good to have Laura weigh in on this one too. But the main question I have about this is whether or not we need to hire an engineer to develop a site plan for the parking area. I know, Marcella, you went to the planning board hearing a week or two ago. Was that discussed at all, whether,
The only thing, I mentioned this last meeting, the only thing we need to think about is the change of use. So since I get the way we left it was that we still need to GPS the wetlands and make sure that we know where we're putting the parking area. So I think that might be something we should do before we have this conversation.
Yeah, there's two potential permit issues. One is the planning board and the other is probably going to be a notice of intent. And whether we can whether our administrator will allow us to get away without an engineered drawing. I guess we can try to get that wetland delineation map.
When you talk about having and then having engineered plans. You know, I look at a
That's like-
rectangle, I cut a, you know, you put some gravel down and you identify certain spots and it's like, what do you need an engineered plan for?
Well, I'm not saying we necessarily do, but you know, where exactly the driveway would go, or the entrance would go.
There aren't very many places you can put it, so
Mm.
it, yeah.
And the other issue, you know, we talked a little bit about maybe doing a replication area there too.
Mhm.
To combine, and I think if we end up proposing replication area, we would probably need a plan. An engineer drawing. And then the other question that's still outstanding is who pays for this? Would SVP hire the engineer, or would the commission? So I guess
You know, and I think you could have a, you know, a really good sketch plan, you know, if people, you know, graph paper and measurements and stuff like that. That could work. But obviously, I'm sure DEP likes to see engineered plans more than hand-drawn sketches.
yeah, I'm a little gun shy.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
given
is such
my,
a simple I mean, in theory, it's a simple project. You know.
Yeah.
It
But-
is something that you could easily create on a piece of graph paper and be very clear about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think, you know, there are notice of intents that go forward with that. And not every notice of intent needs engineered plans, for sure.
Usually those are more like, you know, someone putting in a swimming pool in their backyard. or
Right,
something,
right.
You know,
Yeah,
this is and I personally would feel a little bit,
yeah.
a little bit concerned about just doing.
Especially if they may have to, I wonder if they're gonna want to put a little bit of fill in to kind of make the parking lot more level because of that dip, that
Mhm.
part.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't mind it just going down, but that kind of makes it more like, maybe it should be engineered or something, but.
yeah, I mean, but they are gonna have to do some grading and, you know, if you do a parking lot right, you have to bring in various layers of, you know,
Yeah.
material and it isn't just as simple as putting a pile of gravel down and
Right.
you know, rolling your car onto it, but you know, in terms of what the layout and the footprint of it's going to be, that is pretty easy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, well, to be continued, for the next meeting, try to get the wetlands flags, GPS, and something up for people to look at. Next on the agenda is Deer Map users. Mary, anything you want to talk about regarding that?
Yeah, this came up as, you know, we're trying to add some people on and, you know, realized, you know, we still had, you know, Diane Jett on there and stuff like that. Some people, you know, so a bunch of things were changed around. So like, I think the current users are, you know, Bill and Dennis from DPW. And then Val, I think, is the only one from assessing that's using it. Then myself is using it. Oh, there's Loraball.
I'm sorry, I just got it in.
Hi, how are you, Loraball?
Good, and you, Mary?
Yeah, so we approved your project.
Oh,
And,
thank you very much. And I'm so sorry that I was doing something else and I totally forgot.
But I guess
can ask them about the ownership of the other parcel.
Yeah, there's a few questions.
Yes.
So there's the two parcels, and the DEP came up with a question of they couldn't see that the recording information was on the second parcel. I think the one that you just purchased. Did you get that deed recorded?
Not yet, because the state has lien on it, which the lawyer is waiting for them to say okay, which the lawyer also say they just gonna be fine because the money is gonna go to them. So that-
So, but you won't be able to start construction on it until until that's sorted out, right?
On the septic, no, but the lawyers say early next week we should be all set.
Okay, well, maybe we can, maybe I'll put a condition in the order that construction won't start until you can have proof that that deed is recorded for that
Yes.
second lot.
And
That
also
makes sense?
that does. And Mary, and if you want to talk to my lawyer, David Simone, he lives in Hopkinton. He's a well-known lawyer, like a real estate lawyer.
Okay,
I can send you his info. Because
Okay.
any question that you have, I'll email to you.
okay.
But on the other side, Mary, can you release the building permit for the house?
Did I not release that yet?
No, Mary.
Okay. I will release that.
Thank you. And also, if you can let Diane know that you release, because she's waiting for you to release her side. See her
Oh,
side.
for the septic?
Yes, because she won't release if you don't release.
Well, we just approved you tonight, so that one. Yeah, that didn't get the final approval till tonight for the septic.
Okay. So, and then you're gonna let her know?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Then the other question was about the boulders.
Yes.
Were you gonna use boulders that were on site for that?
Yeah, Mary, because that existing wall, which has big boulders, that's the one that I was thinking use. Does the commission has any opposition on that?
No, I think they just didn't want you to have to buy boulders and bring them in. I think that was
Yeah.
the concern.
Yeah, and that wall, if you look, I can send you pictures, and you show the board. There is a large boulders on the wall that I will take it down, because I'm gonna make. Oh, you still there, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm gonna take down to make a ramp, so the construction guys gonna go. So I'm gonna use. You're gonna like, Mary. It will be large and long boulders.
Okay, so I think the board, they're gonna want, I think boulders were okay, but bounds are also okay, and maybe we'll and the boulders should be big, but they wouldn't have to be as close as the engineer said. I think the board thought, 4 to 5 feet apart would be okay. Now, if you
Okay.
want that line that's closer, that's fine.
No, because yeah, because the engineer, yeah. Yeah, Mary.
Yep, we're still here.
Okay, so Mary, no, we'll be up like 5 feet apart, something like that's what I was thinking.
That's what you were thinking?
Yes, and because Mary, where I put the existing, the cherry tree and the maple tree, not the ones that I'm gonna plant, the ones that I put it in. I also would like to finish killing the bittersweet, the vine that has red roots, the bittersweet, how you call them?
Yep.
Because they kill the trees, and I want
Yes.
access to go over there to take that out when
Okay.
the spring comes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you gonna pull it out with machinery?
No, because if I pull it up with the machinery already, the stuff because the small roots they stay on the ground. That's I'm gonna pull by hand. The bigger stuff I already pulled it up. Before I planted those trees over there.
Yeah.
Not be hand work.
Okay, that's, I think, the best way to do it, probably.
Yeah.
Especially with the wetland close by.
Yes.
Any other thoughts from the board about this or comments for Laravel?
All right, well, thank you, Lorville.
You're welcome.
We'll be issuing the order conditions soon.
Thank you. And I put the silt fence and the straw walls above the wall, Mary. Did you see it?
I haven't been there yet. It's on top of the wall. Perfect.
Yeah, no, I sent you pictures on your phone.
Oh, you know, if you're sending pictures to the phone number, I don't think I get them because it's a town number. It's a landline. It's not a cell phone.
Okay,
That's
no,
why I don't get
I'll
them.
email them.
Yep.
I'm gonna email them to you.
Yep. Email them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so Laravel, I'll get that order of conditions to you sometime next week. And once if you hear anything from the lawyer about that deed getting recorded, that'll be part of it. Okay.
Okay. And as soon as I hear, I'll send to you, Mary.
Perfect.
And if you can please let
Release that building permit. Yeah.
Yes, tomorrow would be great if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, I can do that.
All right. Okay, thank you. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Yep.
And I'm gonna send you right now on your email, Mary, the pictures.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep. Take care. Thank you. Back to near map users. I think Mary, is David now a user? Is there a spot for him?
Yes, David, did you get an invitation?
I haven't yet.
You have not?
No.
It would have come a while back. Whenever I talked to Valerie, it was like a month ago. And she, at that point, sent out a whole bunch of invitations. And it may have looked like junk mail. I don't know. Or maybe it went to a junk mail box.
Okay. Yeah, I'll double check that.
Yeah, check for something from Nearmap. Yeah, so we had a spot for David. Mike's on there. We were able to, add Mike Antonellis and Grace on as users. So like pretty much almost everybody in the office can look at it. They gave Amy access, although she hasn't used it yet. So that pretty much fills out the 10 users, but I'm not sure that everyone in our office would have to have their own login, since, if Amy wants to look at something, she can always come look at my screen. She doesn't use it very often, or she can ask Grace. And I don't know that Mike Antonellis has logged in yet, although I'm sure he would use it. So, there's 10 users, and that's kind of how it's divided up right now. So any thoughts or comments?
Thanks, Mary. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll double check, Mary. Yeah, I mean, it would be great to have, but if someone else expresses a need to, I'd be happy as well to have them do it. So.
I think there's room. So
okay. Thanks. Yeah, I'll double check. So.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Getting near the end here. Sutter Mill Road drainage issues.
Yeah, we can put this off if you want, or we can talk about it. This is a kind of probably a neighbor dispute. But there is, and I think I need to reach out to DPW about this. There's a homeowner who, this was done a while back, has some kind of pipe going into a town culvert. So it's probably like a foundation drain or something like that, directly dumps into the town culvert, which goes under the street in Cider Mill into somebody else's property, and he claims, well, the wetland's bigger now and he's like, well, the neighbor's been doing this for years and whatever. So, that's kind of the complaint. It probably is an issue. I don't know how the DPW feels about it, that the homeowner has a culvert dumping directly, or has a pipe dumping directly into DPW culvert. I do have pictures if you want to see, but that's the gist of the story.
Unless someone wants to talk about, let's just keep it on the agenda.
Okay.
For next meeting, and then the last thing is modification, conservation, land use regs. I suggest that we postpone this to another meeting.
Yeah.
And it's 9:10. Is anything anyone would like to talk about before we adjourn? All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, voice vote, please.
Aye.
Alan, I.
David, I.
Happy
Mike,
New
aye.
Year, everyone.
Mike, aye. I think that's unanimous.
Marcella, aye.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Mary, thank you very much for.
Happy New Year. Good
Happy New
job.
Year.
Yeah.
Happy New Year,
Happy New Year,
everyone.
Happy New Year, folks.
Bye.
Bye.